I'm historically inspired in some areas, and in some areas I'm just like, I'm gonna stick that bit together and stick that bit together and see what happens. Hi! Last week I made a dress. This week I'm hand stitching 40 eyelets into it, and it's taking forever. So I figured, while I was sitting here hand stitching these eyelets, only 18 more to go, that I might as well spend some of this time here talking about a little bit about what I do for Larp, and answering some questions that I've received about how to do this sort of stuff. I'm going to start off with how to start. Starting is going to be different for everybody depending on what group you're going into and what sort of Larp you're going into. Larps are so different. You've got anything from, like, I'm in medieval type Larps, you've got post-modern warfare Larps, you've got caveman Larps, you've got apocalyptic Larps, you've got World War II Larps, you've got fantasy themed Larps with werewolves and vampires. Like, if you can imagine it, if there's a movie about it, there's probably a Larp about it somewhere. Even if it's a small one, there's probably a Larp about it. So my focus is primarily on medieval stuff. So think like 14th century European, 14th century to sort of late 1600s. My experience has been with those eras, and my Larp is currently Warhammer themed. So a lot of my costumes are geared towards those European style clothing, dresses, accents, languages, outfits. All of that is European based, which is helpful because there's a lot of, for me, being only able to speak and read English, it's very helpful because a lot of those areas have English resources. So it makes things easier for me. But obviously that's not going to be the case for everybody. When you're starting out, the first thing that you need to do is talk to the people in your community. I'm supposed to be sewing while I do this, so let's do the sew and talk at the same time, shall we? So talk to your community. Find out what they're about, what their themes are, ask lots of questions, and take note of any websites or resources that they tell you about, because you'll probably use those places quite a lot as you inform your journey. As a beginner player, stage blacks with whatever the identifying feature of your group is over the top is a great place to start. If you don't have stage blacks per se, track pants with black track pants, brown track pants, greys, basically anything that doesn't have modern writing, screen printing or logos or anything stamped on it, is a huge way to get started, because you want to avoid writing. That will immediately detract from your attempt to blend in. Colours and fabrics you can sort of overlook, but as soon as there's any sort of modern writing in the way, it's very, very distracting. So I definitely start off with something akin to stage blacks. And then if you feel confident with sewing, you can start branching into matching the style of your group with perhaps some patterns from your local fabric store, depending where you are in the world, in Australia. For me, my local pattern store is Spotlight or Craft. Those are the two in my town, but yours will be different probably. If you are joining a historical reenactment group, it's really important to talk to them because they will have specific rules that you have to adhere to be part of their group. General LARPing can be pretty flexible so long as you look the part. But for historical reenactment groups, it's really important that you make sure you adhere to their rules because they have construction rules as well, a lot of them. And so sewing it up with a machine and putting a zipper in it is not an option. Not an option is where I ran out of storage space in my phone. So, historical accuracy is important for those historical groups. For LARP, it's not required, it's not necessary. I'm just being real extra by hand stitching these eyelets. I'm really starting to wish now that I had bought those metal eyelets, even though they were really horribly silver or gold brass, and smashed those into this dress instead of hand stitching what seems to be 40 eyelets myself. I know now for next time that you're back. I know now for next time that hand stitching eyelets through multiple layers of wool is not a fun thing to do. So where were we? Beginning your character creation with clothing and kit. Kit is one of those magical words that I use to describe your clothing, your accessories, your shoes, your hats, anything that you physically put on your body, makeup, face paint, anything that you physically put on your body in order to become the character that you're playing falls into kit in my mind. So, definition. So that means that your kit is, you're going to want to build your kit around the group and the theme that you're working with. It kind of makes sense in order to fit in, unless you're planning to be, you know, a loner and play this game that you're in as a loner, which, you know, if you don't meet the theme that's generally going on. For example, let's say you're attending a Hobbit LARP and you go as an Argonian from Skyrim. Like, you're not going to fit in at all. It's not going to make sense for that character to be there. You're from a completely different world. There's no story, it just doesn't work. So you want to make sure that you're ticking off some of those kit things in order to fit in. If you're attending a Hobbit LARP, you want to make sure that you have something comfortable to wear, because really, with hobbits, it's all about comfort. You are probably looking for bright colours, simple fabrics, and very, they don't really do like detailed gold embroidery or anything in the films. For hobbits, that was more for the elves, so it would make more sense to be simply dressed in comfortable, sensible clothing. Pretty, but comfortable. Go all out on the frills and the ruffles and maybe some lace and petticoats and aprons and caps and stuff, but it doesn't make sense for that style, that theme, that LARP, to show up as a lizardman. So addressing your theme is really important, regardless of where you are in the spectrum of leveling up your kit. If you don't understand the theme, ask. There is no such thing as dumb questions when it comes to this sort of stuff, because you cannot account for what people do and do not know. If you know stuff about Lord of the Rings, but you don't know how halflings in Lord of the Rings differ from halflings in the Dungeons and Dragons world, in Vale and Bowron, the name of that world that Wizards of the Coast have built. If you don't know what the differences is, there's going to be a crossover and you might get something wrong. So asking questions is a really good way. In Warhammer, elves are different to elves of Lord of the Rings. There are different types of elves, which we don't really see in Lord of the Rings, at least not from the film perspectives. So it's really important to ask questions, especially when you're going into something specific that has a lot of information written about it. If you haven't read that information and you're wanting to go into that, ask questions. Very important, very important. Get your theme down, because that will help building your character into a theme much easier. I think I've banged on long enough about theme. The other thing that fits in with all of that is the group that you're specifically joining. Make sure you work with them and your design fits in with them. If, and I'm going to use the Warhammer Larp again because that's what I'm working with, in our group, unless to become like a knight from, let's say, a Bretonnian household, you have to have a certain number of people in order to support one person being a knight. If you have a group of, say, 10 people, that could be enough for one knight. But you can't have an 11th person showing up saying, "Hi, I'm a knight from blah 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 blah," in that group, because all of a sudden you have a conflict of interest. So it's really important for that 11th person to have a conversation. The knight will probably be the warband leader, the group leader, or someone who is in the leadership system. But it's really important to have a conversation with the leader of that group and say, what can I do to join this group? Where can I fit in? He might say, we have we can take in another servant, we can take in another shoe polisher, we can take in another squire, we can take in a lady in waiting. These are some of the options we have available. What would you like? And so you work together to build a spot for your character, and from that spot, you work out your kit. Because obviously, a squire is going to be dressed very differently from a lady in waiting, who's going to be dressed very differently from a farmhand or from a shoe polisher. So, figuring out where you fit in, where your niche is, will help inform you of what kit you... Ow! That needle was invisible. Ow! Alright, you're going point down now. Ow! Find your place in the theme. That will help you figure out what clothing you need. The character that's getting this dress, her name is Natalia. I'm not even going to try and say her last name. It's heckin' hard. She is the daughter of a tavern owner and a farmer's wife. So her clothing is for basically a tavern, a barmaid, a tavern, a serving girl sort of thing. That's her day job, is working in the tavern, working in Dad's tavern, serving food, serving drinks, that sort of stuff. Her parents don't know about her night job, and she intends to keep it that way. Are you going to sit? Maybe. Are you going to block the camera's view of my face? Hey, I'm talking to you. Yes, you. You could, get lower.
That would be helping though, Mummy. And I don't do helping. I am a cat.
It's just leaves. There is no birds. No birdies. None.
Lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Down, 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 down. Presses it down.
Did you grumble at me? You're the one who's invading my space.
Look at them. They're so cute.
Oh yeah, we should sew some eyelets too. My personal experience, I went from here is a medieval Larp, vaguely historical, anything from, say, 12th century European, no, 12th century worldwide to 16th century, beginning of the 1700s, is open. You can make anything from any of that eras to fit within the theme of the group that you've joined. So I went from a very wide range of outfits available, not that I actually explored all of the avenues, but there was a large range, to the same Larp changed its theme to strictly Warhammer in the year 2000, which meant that a lot of our costumes had changed, a lot of the I guess little quirks that individual groups have, they had to be had to be redone and changed to fit the Warhammer theme. There are still groups that are doing that. And the whole dynamic of the Larp changed with that transition. It gave me an excuse to make more costumes, and it gave me an excuse to care I'm really not wording well. Care a little bit more about historical accuracy, which is not something I had ever really taken into consideration, and I'm historically inspired in some areas, and in some areas I'm just like, I'm gonna stick that bit together and stick that bit together and see what happens. Oh, it turned out really cool. Doesn't look like anything that should ever have existed, but that's okay. It looks cool. Waxed linen thread. So, in my journey, the first character that I ever made, the first Larp that I ever joined, I joined a group that their theme was basically mafia crossed with street beggar, in a sense, and their colours were red and white, a middle deepish sort of red with a white skull. It was a rat skull, but the shape's kind of been lost. If you ever see my display on the curtain, you'll see that emblem hanging up. The theme was very much inspired by sort of Russian mafia type of thing, where you had the head honcho at the top, and his word was law, and if you disagreed with him, you died, basically. And I came in at the bottom of the pecking order, and not only on top of that, I also decided that this character was going to be a magic user, which for that particular group was taboo. Basically, I was setting this character up to be ostracized and hated by everybody in that warband, but they wouldn't kick me out because I'm a valuable asset. They would want to control me, but none of them would like me, sort of thing. And that character, her name was Selena, and she had she turned into one of the most amazing characters, and I couldn't have imagined that when I started it. When I created her, I picked the name of the main character in the Underworld Vampire Werewolf series because I heckin' enjoyed those movies. And so I had Selena, and she came into this group, and I didn't know anything really, so I asked her a buttload of questions. What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? What sort of clothing should I wear? Looked around at everybody. A lot of that group was also just starting, or had just started, and a lot of them were basically in stage blacks with the group tabard. We call them the tabard. It's basically a rectangular sheet of fabric with a neck hole cut out with a symbol on the front and the back, an identifier token. That's all you needed to run with the group, was that tabard sash thing over your head and tied at the waist. And you could run with the group. So a lot of people just came in black track pants, black shirt, or dark browns, or neutral colours. He has a purple nose. I kissed his nose with my lipstick, and his nose is now purple. Oops. And he's making my black dress white, which is very generous of him. You're quite right there, sir. You settled? Good. Where was I? Starting. So, looking around at what everybody else had, I went out and I bought a pattern from Spotlight. Now, I can sew. I did a sewing course when I was at high school, so I knew a little bit about sewing. I knew how to read a pattern, I knew how to cut out a pattern, and so I kind of had an advantage there. And I went out to Spotlight and bought a pattern, bought some fabric, and made myself a dress. Now, the dress I made was based off a pattern, using a pattern that was based off a dress that since has the Cersei Lannister lookalike on the front of it. I call it my useless sleeves dress. It's a beautiful A-line dress, princess seams of course. There's no waist seam, just princess seams. And then it has these glorious bell sleeves. And in all of my infinite wisdom, I decided that that dress, which was going to be in the correct red, and I was going to put some gold trim around the edge because that was pretty and matching. And I was going to try and fight with a two-handed sword with these huge sleeves. And it didn't work. So that dress ended up going on a coat hanger in my wardrobe, and came out as kind of like my fancy dress, ball gown type of feasting clothing. That became that dress, my useless sleeves dress, as I fondly call it. I meant to be sewing eyelets. So I went back and I made myself another dress, but this time I didn't put the huge sleeves on it. Oh, hello, you too. This time I didn't put the huge sleeves on it. This time I got some cotton cheesecloth, which is like a really, really loose sort of stuff. I don't know what, like, the historical, technical term, like, I have discovered that fabrics are called different things all across the country, all across the world. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to talk here. Why must you be so loud? You want your own bed, alright. Here. Have a bed. Go on, have a bed. Come on. Now sit. I think I should probably call this cat time with interruptions of sewing and conversation. Yes, I ended up using, we call it cheesecloth or muslin. I guess it could be a cotton lawn or something like that. Basically, it's a very, very fine, loose weave, and you could see through it. And I used that for the sleeves because we were going into summer, and I was conscious of the fact that I was getting very warm running around all the time. So I had this red dress with white sleeves, and I'd sort of gathered them at the wrist. I laced up the front as well, so instead of having the princess seam panels and the zipper in the side as what the original dress had, I laced the front up and got rid of the zipper altogether. And I quite liked that. It fitted the theme. I looked vaguely more medieval, and the cheesecloth tore really well, which fitted the beggar look. And what I ended up doing was stitching the skull emblem on the skirt itself. And then over time, because I'd made the red fabric with a really sturdy cotton, over time, as the fabric naturally distressed, I also added patches into it, and I put some cuts in it and patched over the top of that and stuff, like sort of artificially wearing it to hasten the process, to make it look more raggedy, which again fitted the theme that I was working with, and it just continued to evolve from there. So I lost a bunch of footage thanks to my memory filling up. So I'll just finish off what I was going to say, and then I finished the eyelets now. My poor fingers need a rest, so I'm going to do some easy sewing for a little while. Costume evolved, her makeup evolved, her kit evolved, everything sort of developed over the 4 years, the time that I played that character. And in that time I created a second character who was in the ancient Greek warband, and her kit was a lot more simple. She just had like the white chiton with the colours of the warband in blue and yellow, which is what I often have hanging on my wall, and the spears that you can see behind me are from that warband as well. But again, like, starting off with the basics, we had a sash of yellow that we would throw over people that would run with our warband. We just required them to come in very simple, little plain, let me try and word better, plain clothing without writing on it, and we would throw a sash over them, and they would be in the group for the evening for the fight. At least that's how our LARP works. I don't know if not every LARP will be the same. Some will have minimum dress requirements, and you can usually find that out by communicating with the members of your group. So if there's one tip from this long ramble that I've been on today, yesterday, etc., it's talk to the people that you want to play with, because they are the most informed on what and how you should be wearing. And that's just clothing, and I have talked a lot about that. Maybe next time we'll talk about leveling up your clothing, going from those trackies and plain stage blacks to different options that you have. And I had intended to do that, but it's already half an hour long, and that's plenty of me rambling. So we're gonna cut it here, and I think I've already looped all the cat videos that I have from that section of talking into the video already, so I'm just gonna stop here. If you've made it this far, I'm very impressed. Thank you for listening to me ramble and just talk random things. Whatever came into my head, I've tried to organize it, and even in organizing it, it's kind of like, what were you thinking? Just talking at people. I'm hoping to do more of these, I hope, helpful rambles on a more regular basis. Comment below and let me know if this was helpful or not, and if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see. There's like, what is it YouTubers say? Like and subscribe or something? Do the thing. I'm assuming you know how to use YouTube. And I'm going to, oh, that's a terrible shot. I'm going to finish editing this and hopefully upload it tonight and make sure everything is all okay. Cool exit scene. I'm getting interrupted. It doesn't matter where I am. Look at this. Trying to be cool. And I have this one just stalking behind me. You get cat videos now. Even at the end, there's no avoiding it. No avoiding it. None. No avoidance. Bye. Oh, are they holding paws? Oh, that's so cute. Look at him giving me the evil eye. Oh, they don't normally do this adorable stuff.